The last couple of weeks, I think you've seen a subtle but a really important shift in the campaign dynamics. And as you say, two forces create it. One is the economy really is steadily improving. You've seen unemployment tick down, job creation tick up. And I think maybe as important as those numbers, the numbers that show you that consumers are actually gaining a little bit of confidence and starting to believe this is a real improvement after months of skepticism are there for President Obama as well. That's really important for him. At the same time, you've seen social issues tick up in importance. And a lot of this is wrapped around this controversy that we've talked about a couple of times between the Obama administration and the Catholic Church hierarchy over providing contraceptive services at Catholic institutions through their insurance programs. But I think that's just one sign that social issues have started to pop up, and that's benefiting Rick Santorum. I think you've seen him rise on the, partly at least, on that wave in the last couple of weeks. Not necessarily such good news for Mitt Romney on both these fronts. His whole campaign is based on, I can do a better job of stewarding the economy than Barack Obama can, and his weakness is social conservatives in the Republican Party don't really trust him. So I think the dynamic on both sides is being changed here as we watch.
So on both sides it's being changed, and you can see positives and negatives, except for maybe the uniqueness of Santorum that you point to. Is the economy, would you say, still in a tentative stage to be clinched
Absolutely.
as a factor? Yeah.
No, it is. It is, and that's. I think the Obama people have to be, careful and reserved in analyzing this, because I think, the economic improvement that we've seen is just one Greek default or one military confrontation with Iran away from going back downhill very rapidly. And in fact, there's some concern that even just the slowness in Europe could drag the economy back down by the summertime. So this is not the economic improvement that we've seen is not baked into the cake very well yet. And there has to be some concern about that. On the other hand, there's been enough of an improvement that you've seen in for example, the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey, an uptick of 10 points in the last 2 months in that reading. And in our polling, Wall Street Journal, NBC News polling, you had back in November a net negative 3%. 3% more people thought the economy was going to get worse in the next 12 months than thought it would get better. Last month, there were 20% more people who thought the economy would get better over the next 12 months than thought it would get worse. That's a pretty significant turnaround in the attitude of voters about what's happening in the economy, which in the long run is what really matters politically, even more than what's really happening in the economy.
Right. Yeah, the perceptions are somebody else's reality. I mean, that's what we've always got to remember about that. Now, let's talk about these social issues. They play against President Obama somewhat, right?
Well, I think so, although that's in dispute, and I think the jury is out on that. I think the way the White House had to sort of scramble and backfill on the fight with the Catholic Church over contraception insurance coverage, told you last week they thought that was not working well for them, that they were in danger of turning off swing voters. Even swing voters who actually agree with the policy that the Obama administration was putting forward were not necessarily comfortable with the government swooping in and telling church institutions what they needed to do. So I think that was a sign that even the administration realized that was a political problem. On the other hand, Obama aides will argue that most people agree with the substance of the policy they're pursuing, and more importantly, by standing up and fighting for contraception services, he probably scored some points with women voters in the middle of the electorate, which is a huge constituency for President Obama. So I think there are some pluses and minuses. It's a bit of a two-edged sword. I think that overall, the danger for President Obama is that there are some swing voters who tend to get turned off if there's too much focus on cultural issues in which the administration may be seen as moving to the left, and they have to avoid that perception.
Jerry, looking at just the Republican side of the equation right now, we're going into a period in the primary season where it's going to be a little relatively quiet for a few weeks. The Super Tuesday is not till March, and we have some smaller primaries coming up. But do you see anything playing out in the next few weeks between Romney and Gingrich and Santorum that might be on these two topics that we're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's actually, though it's quiet, it's still an important period for the following reasons. You've got a chance for Rick Santorum here to consolidate the lead that he seems to have opened up among conservatives. He can make himself in the next few weeks the alternative, the social conservative and conservative in general alternative to Mitt Romney. But what he's got to do to do that is maintain some profile and raise some money, and he's going to be working on that. Interestingly, you've got Newt Gingrich out in California this week trying to raise money as well, because he needs to show that he's the alternative to Mitt Romney, not Rick Santorum, but he needs some money to keep the campaign going at the kind of level where that's necessary. And you're going to see Mitt Romney basically going to to ground in a couple of states, Arizona being the first one and Michigan being the second one. They both have primaries at the end of the month. He needs to win Michigan for sure, because that's almost one of his home states. He ought to win Arizona because he's been working that state awfully hard for a couple of years. If he doesn't, I think he's in danger of losing the presumptive nominee, clear front runner status that most people still have in the back of their mind, if not the front of their mind.